Okay, well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Tuesday, July 5th, 2016 council meeting. At this time, I will call the meeting to order, and we'll be led in prayer with Reverend Hank Rosso from the Midwest Bible Camp.
If you join me in prayer, please. Our Heavenly Father, we thank you for this gathering here tonight. And Lord, we thank you for the obvious loving presence that you have in our community through the commitment and the gifts of those represented here tonight. I thank you for each one of our council members and the sacrifice they make, giving of their time, their talent, Lord. Pray that you'd bless them in every way and their families. We thank you for our Honorable Mayor, Steve Thorson. We ask you to continue to guide and direct him and surround him with people who will support him and guide and direct him. Lord, we thank you for each one who are a part of this great city of ours. So many who work so faithfully and behind the scenes and go unnoticed. Lord, you see everything. We pray that you continue to keep your hand of blessing on each one. And God, we're especially mindful of those community heroes that serve us in the day and the deep darkness as well. Our police officers and the leadership there continue to give them wisdom and integrity and strength as they carry out their duties for us, protecting us in many ways. We also think of our fire department, with the firefighters and the paramedics and EMTs, Lord. We pray for them as well, Lord, that you would keep them safe and that you'd minister to them and each one of their family members too, as we recognize that our first responders have loved ones at home that are often wondering just how things go during that tour of duty. And Lord, we do not forget our 911 callers, those in the dispatch department, as even though they're on the other side of a glass during an incident, Lord, that they too serve in a way that we don't know, and the stresses they face, Lord. We pray that you continue to keep your hand on them. And Lord, we thank you for each one and all the other various departments in our city, whether it be Parks and Rec, the Streets Department, Lord, the utilities, and other areas that I'm not aware of right now, but Lord, we thank you for them. We ask your hand of blessing on this meeting now and each one present. And may you be pleased what is said and done here. And we thank you for all these things. For the mighty name of Jesus we pray. Amen. Thank you.
Thanks, Hank. Scott, will you see if that air is on over there? If it's not, crank it up. Nice. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Shelley, you want to do a roll call for us?
I can. Albertson.
Here.
Bueller.
Here.
Danforth.
Here.
Manty. Here. Riefenberger.
Here.
Roby.
Here.
Solom.
Here.
Thorson absent. Tupper.
Here.
Philhauer. Here. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Shelley. This time I will look for a motion and a second for the approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion by Beth, second by Glenn. Any questions, changes? Hearing none, I'll look for council action. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Number 2, I'll look for a motion and a second for approval of the agenda. So moved. Motion by John, second by Randy. Any questions, any changes? Hearing none, I'll look for a motion to approve. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Number 3, approval of our new city attorney. Justin, how you doing? All right. What we're going to do here is we will get a motion in a second, and then you can just tell us a little bit about yourself. Make sure your microphone is on for us. So I will look for a motion in a second to approve Justin as our new city engineer.
So moved.
Motion by Mike, second by Don.
Did you say engineer?
What did I say? Oh,
Shane says, what the
I'm sorry,
heck?
Shane.
Like up for this organization.
Yeah, Shane, you're out of here. Sorry, man.
I didn't even make 1 year.
Just switch chairs,
Just
lady.
days away.
Yeah, just switch chairs. We're all good. I was probably looking at you. That's the bad thing. So I'll look. So I have a motion and a second for approval of. It was Mike and Don. Approval for the city attorney, Justin Getz. Okay. So Mike will stay with that motion. Any questions you have for him? I think we'll just go ahead and do it, and then we'll let Justin kind of give us a little history of himself. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Welcome, Justin.
Thank you,
Tell us a
Mayor.
little bit about yourself.
Well, I guess I'll start from the beginning. I was born in Aberdeen, raised in Aberdeen, and so have an experience with a similar-sized community. But most of my experience with Watertown prior to some of the visits here lately have been in competitive sports and debate, and boy, did we get waxed every single time, it seemed. No, I have a great deal of respect for Watertown schools and academics after playing them in high school, and after high school, graduated from Aberdeen Central and went on to South Dakota State University, got my degree there, spent about a year and a half in Washington, D.C. as a part of the Truman Scholarship Program, and there learned a great deal about community economic development in rural communities. Came back into the region, went to law school at the University of Minnesota, and from there went and clerked with the Federal District Court up in Aberdeen, Judge Kornman's chambers. While in law school, I was a clerk for Xcel Energy in the city, so got some utilities experience. And since my time with the federal court was with the South Dakota Supreme Court, first as a staff attorney on their legal side and then as a staff attorney for the entire court system for South Dakota, and now I'm here. So looking forward to the challenges. The mayor's been just excellent in welcoming me, and really appreciate the opportunity that you all have given me. So thank you. Thank you very much.
All right, well, welcome. Was there something you wanted to say, Glenn?
I was going to say welcome also, Justin, but also want to let the record show, express our appreciation to Lisa for filling in the last several months. I'm not sure if she took off. Oh, you're back
No,
there.
she's back there.
So thank you, Lisa.
And I will tell you that Lisa has told Justin that if there's anything he needs that is ongoing, a couple of things that are out there, she will definitely help you out on that. And thanks again, Lisa, for doing that. Appreciate it. Okay, so we're going to number 4, election of officers. At this time every year, we elect new officers. We will first be looking for a council president. I'll look for right away a motion, a nomination to nominate a president, whether you want to stay with what you got, or go for something new.
Don't make that sound so bad.
No, I'm just kidding. I'm just giving you a bad time. So I'll look for a nomination.
That being said, I would nominate Bruce Bueller.
Second.
Okay, we have a nomination for Bruce Bueller and a second. Is there any others? Hearing none. Do you still need a vote then, Shelley, or is it kind of unanimous right there? Okay, so Bruce is the new president of the council. Now we'll look for nominations for the council vice president.
I'm going to nominate Glenn Vilhauer.
Okay, I have Glenn nominated. Do I have a second for that?
I would second it.
A second by Randy. Any others? Wow, this is an easy group tonight. Congratulations, Glenn. All right. So do we want to switch chairs tonight, or do we want to do it next week? Let's do it. Let's switch them up. Yeah, let's switch them up. This ought to be exciting. Here we go. Well, next time we'll play that song, That's Me in the Corner. Yeah. Don, don't forget your cupcake over here too, you know, with the candles.
Same to you, sir.
Congratulations, Bruce.
Thank you, Mayor.
And congratulations, Glenn. Perfect. Did you get your name? Here's Mike's. Mike, you want to hand us Glenn's? Bruce Bueller.
There you go. That's the hardest part of the
You
meeting,
guys,
right?
you guys are killing me up here. Okay. Gets, G-O-E-T-Z. Whatever Justin wants, Justin gets.
I like it.
Yeah.
Hey, there's no cup.
Okay.
There's no cupcake here, man.
No cup. Go here. You can have this one.
No. I'm kidding.
Okay, let's move on. I think we're running on a slippery slope here. Number 5, application for a transfer of ownership and location of a retail on-off sale malt beverage license from Harry's Haircuts and Hot Towels LLC, which is an inactive license at 1522 Parkview Drive, to Bindi Enterprises Incorporated, doing business as Highway 81 Liquors at 507 Arrow Avenue Northeast. At this time, I will open the public hearing. If there's anybody here that wants to speak in favor of or against this is your opportunity. Hearing none, I will close the public hearing. I will look for a motion and a second for discussion.
So moved.
Motion by John, second by Mike. Any questions on this? Hearing none, I'll look for council action. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Number 6, congratulations. Number 6, second reading of ordinance number 1610, amending zoning district boundaries by rezoning property from a PUD, which is a planned unit development, single-family attached residential district, and I-1 light industrial to A1 agricultural district. At this time, I will open the public hearing. If there's anybody here who wants to speak in favor of or against this is your opportunity. Hearing none, I will close the public hearing. I'll look for a motion and a second for discussion.
So moved.
Motion by Bruce, second by Randy. Any questions on this, guys? As you know, I'll just kind of give a little history on it. This is over at the new Lions Park. We're just kind of getting the zoning correct so they can put up their new facility. I would like, Spencer, could you just put that up there quick?
Mayor, I have some stuff
You got it
loaded.
there?
Yep.
Put that up, and we'll, I think I'm going to have them vote on it right now while you're getting that ready.
Okay, so if my screen's up now, that's the area that's hatched that we're rezoning. And some of the plans that go in there. This is a
He's got it.
plan view. The area in purple is the new shelter with the roof enclosure over the top, and the green area is public restrooms. The gray area out here is a proposed parking lot. A little bit zoomed up area of the floor plan with the bathrooms along the east end, and then the main shelter and a front porch type overhang. That'll be really neat. And here's a artist rendition of what they expect the look to be similar. So,
That's going to be a great facility, and I
Yep.
think they want to get started yet this fall, get some work done on it.
yeah, the utility work is scheduled fairly soon, and then after that, they can start working on grading and foundation stuff.
Maybe you said it, Shane, and that is the Lions are putting the entire bill on that building?
Correct.
Yeah, they're actually flipping the bill for the whole thing, and then they actually want to turn it over to the Park and Rec, and the Park and Rec will have that for rentals, that people can come in and use it. So once they get it done, they'll turn it over to the city, and this is just a really nice building.
Hopefully, we are reserving the naming to the Lions.
Oh, yes, we have out there now, they have like a 5,000-pound rock out there that says Lions Park. That baby's staying.
Yeah, it ain't going no place, so.
That's right.
If that one blows away, we know we're in trouble, so.
So, okay, I think what I'll do, I'll look for council action. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Lyons. Number 7, vacation of a portion of alley adjacent to Block 2 of Lakeview Addition. At this time, I'll open the public hearing. If there's someone that wants, or anybody wants to speak in favor of or against this is your opportunity. Hearing none, I will close the public hearing. I'll look for a motion and a second for discussion.
So moved.
Motion by Glenn, second by Bill. Any questions on this? Maybe you can fill us in real quickly on it, Shane.
Okay, yep. We got a petition from the folks at the hospital preparing for a potential addition to the hospital and clinic to the southeast of their existing facility. And really where they're asking for the vacation is primarily going to be used for parking and routing traffic around through there. Ultimately, this 9th Avenue entrance will be closed and repurposed for other things. Then there'll be a new entrance further to the south here, kind of in line with the middle of the block. And just for clarity, we did receive another petition that the hospital has now acquired this spot where there's a gap in the alley. So they now own that property and have now petitioned to vacate that portion of the alley as well. And you'll see that in a couple weeks or a month, when our process reaches back around to you folks. So in a nutshell, they've asked to vacate that portion of the alley. They own all the property around it at this point in time, so we see no reason to deny this request. And the public utilities will be left in place until that house is vacated, and then essentially they can be discontinued.
Any questions for Shane on this? Nobody? Hearing none, I will look for council action. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Number 9, vacation of a portion of public right-of-way adjacent to South Lake Drive, resolution number number 8. First reading, here I'm scratching them all so fast. First reading of ordinance number 1608, amending section 3.0101 and 3.0109 and 3.0110 and 3.0112 of Title III regarding animals, poultry, and so forth for the city of Watertown. What I will do is I'll look for a motion and a second for discussion.
So moved.
Oh, this first reading? I'm sorry.
Oh, first reading.
That's right, we pulled it off last time. So this first reading, so somebody that's tied into this thing, give me some history on it, so let us know what's going on.
I think I can do that with moral support from Lisa back there. And this is what you get for sending us back, because it used to be just one change, and now we've got, what, 6 or 7? So, no. The history of this is that we had some areas of our ordinance that were unclear. We had areas of our ordinance that did not reflect actual practice. We went through the process, the Animal Control Board, which was Dan Miller, Mark Reeb, Charisma DeWitt, and myself. Along with the help from Lisa, we reviewed all of the various animal control ordinances from around the area. We also looked at what the state was asking us to add, or other cities to add. And then we kind of discussed it. We had some feedback from some of our other council members, and we felt that it would be better for us to take a second look at it in order to make sure we had a good ordinance rather than pass an ordinance that was just okay and maybe have to revisit it. So that's what we did. And so basically, in a nutshell, I'll summarize and then Lisa can give maybe some of the gory details. What we did was we redefined in the definition section what a dangerous animal was, and I know a lot of you have read this, domestic fowl, exotic animals. So as a person is looking at whether or not they have an issue or a non-issue, they can find the definition of what animal we're talking about. And so, you can see what is a exotic animal, what is an domestic fowl, and then we took the vicious dog ordinance, which has always been there, and then we moved a section of that over to make sure that it applies to all areas where there's an appeal process. Because in the dangerous animal section, you do not have you don't have an option to say, appeal, I wasn't using the right legal term, but that's as good as I can get. You don't have the option to appeal because it is indeed a dangerous animal. We don't want the dangerous animal in town. Now, as far as exotic animals go, which are some of the snakes and the crocodilians, I love that word, crocodilians, and some of those types of things, it's possible that there may be a way to appeal that to the board, and we may make special exceptions, that type of thing. But I think what's nice about this now is that you can look up your animal, you look up the definition, talks about what your special appeals are, and it fits with the rest of the animal control ordinance. So it reads exactly like the rest of animal control ordinance and all our ordinances. Is that correct, pretty much?
Yes.
Okay, so that being said, can you help us out with what you've added to make sure that we are going to on good legal standing, and that, you know, because I can tell you that our feedback from the animal control officer was that he was feeling that it was very enforceable, so.
Yes, Lisa Carrico, outside legal counsel for the city of Watertown. I did meet with the Animal Control Board, and yes, basically, especially when you look at 3.0112, that language was actually over in the vicious dog section, which was 3.0104, but we needed that appeals and special permission process to apply to the whole ordinance. So that's why we gave it its own section. So basically, it was putting different pieces, keeping them the same, but putting them in the right area so that the reader can follow it and understand what it is they're supposed to do. So 3.0109 is the regulations on certain animals, not including dogs. And basically, you would go down and look at your animal and find out what it is you need to do or you can't do. And then you're going to go to 112 and follow that process to either get it approved or appeal. And then, like I said, originally when we had were going to present it in 109, we were defining the animals, even though we already had a definition section. So again, it was really just putting stuff in the right place so that it was easier for the reader.
Great. Any questions for anybody here?
I would just make a comment. I was one of the council members that had some concerns about the previous ordinance that we were looking at the last time around, and I really like what has become of it. So I want to thank those involved in the process. That I think we've got a good ordinance here, in my opinion.
That was like I told Glenn, that I appreciated his input because it made us go back to the table and take a look at getting a better ordinance. So that's what happens when we all talk to each other. I really like the feedback, and it helped us look at, you know, I figured if somebody of my fellow council members had a confusion with it, that means that there might have been somebody in the public who might have had that same problem. So I'm comfortable with this, and so it is a first reading. The whole Animal Control Board is comfortable with it, and so if you all are, then we'll just move it forward for a second reading, I guess, is the process.
Okay,
I took
well,
your
thank
statement
you.
away,
Thank
Mayor.
you very much, Lisa. Thanks, Beth. Absolutely appreciate it. All right, we're going to move on to number 9. Vacation of a portion of public right-of-way adjacent to South Lake Drive, resolution number 16-22. At this time, I think I waited for a motion in a second so we can have some good discussion.
Second.
Motion by Dan, second by Bill. And then Shane, if you'll give us an idea what's going on.
Just for clarity, this is a continuation of the meeting of last that we had, where we had the public hearing and then we deferred action. So just wanted to make that clear. We have now verified the information that we were seeking at the last meeting. So basically, everything that's shaded in green are the properties that are involved in the petition for vacation. The hatched area in between the green and the gray is the area that was petitioned for vacation. And I'm going to bring up another drawing here that doesn't have the shading, but the green lines represent the property lines on both sides of the road. That is 88 feet wide at this time. The requested vacation would vacate the northerly 18 feet, which is where the new magenta line is shown on this drawing. And I apologize, it is a little bit hard to view with the aerial on behind, but it doesn't make sense without the aerial on. So So the space between those two lines represents the 18 feet. The reddish line that's a little bit closer to the street represents the connection of all the utility pedestals that are along those properties. So we anticipate that all of the utilities are still remaining within the public right-of-way that we would retain after the vacation. The purpose for the vacation, as you can see right here on these two properties as an example, is a portion of those homes and garage extensions attached to the homes was extending out into the public right-of-way. We did only, this whole discussion started with a singular request here about in the middle, because this garage existed in the public right-of-way and couldn't be reconstructed there when they demolished and wanted to rebuild within that lot. That got us to looking at all the other adjacent properties within that district. It's approximately 15 lots long, and staff felt with and had concurrence with the Planning Commission that it would make sense for us to clean up all of the right-of-way along that whole district rather than do it lot by lot. So when the request came to vacate the one lot, we said, let's clean it all up together. So that's what we brought forward, and the individual that started the process did receive a written petition from all of the property owners along there. So that was a good step forward to getting this all cleaned up. And with that said, I guess I'll leave it for any questions.
Shane, how many properties does that cover again?
15.
15.
So if we wanted to build a new road out there, is there plenty of right-of-way for
Yes.
us to put in a road? Are we concerned that we would not be able to?
No, we retain 70 feet of right-of-way, which is our normal amount of right-of-way along an arterial collector street, which is what this street is designated. So basically, we had 18 feet of excess right-of-way that we wouldn't have in any other part of the city for a road of this same category.
I really probably don't question the abandonment or of the right of way. I really do question the abandonment of probably the highest residential property value that we have within the community on a no charge basis. That concerns me. In these properties, because of their depth being so narrow, there is, and I spoke with a realtor this morning. I just asked, is there a real value that will be received by this addition of property? He said, without question. He said, you'll see anywhere from a 5 to 7 to 10% increase in property value, just because of the ability to build with that additional area. The other thing I have a concern with is the precedent that we're going to set all around the lake. We aren't taking a whole look at this. We're taking, albeit 15 lots, we've got 750 some lots that go around the lake. And we're taking a small swipe at this thing. That concerns me. It doesn't seem like we've really taken the big picture look at this. We have had similar scenarios where we have either denied requests like this. We did fairly recently on the north side of the lake where the gentleman, I don't remember the name, but he had built onto city property and we denied that sale of that property. Granted, that's a lot and not just a right-of-way, but you know, it's a similar scenario. And we do have a precedence within the community where we have established values for the sale of excess land per se. When Grandview, when they built Lincoln School, put the park in the watershed area by Grandview, behind Grandview on the north side, there was excess land there that was eventually sold back to the homeowners. And so there was a price that was established for that. So I'm good with the fact that the 70 feet is to be retained, and that's enough to build a road, but I do believe that we should be asking for some type of a fair market value on a square foot basis that we would get in return. When we go out and we have to secure right-of-way, we pay through the nose for it. We pay darn dear for it, and we do it all the time. Here we have right-of-way, and we're going to give it away. And that's probably my biggest concern with this. I believe if we're going to have this, that we should have a fair market value that's attached to it, and those homeowners should have the right to buy it at that level. That's it.
I gotta totally agree with Mike on that, because I think we're gonna, by doing this, we're gonna open up a can of worms. I mean, what's gonna stop anybody from, I mean, if I was a property owner on the other side of the lake and I was able to get property for free, why wouldn't I pursue it?
Shane, I do have a question for you.
Yeah.
If nothing is done here, can they still come to the Board of Adjustments and get a variance to build on that?
No, because it's in public right-of-way. We don't allow private structures to be constructed in
So
right-of-way.
there's
We
no
just went through, we just went through this in an alley where we had to give a perpetual easement to keep from moving one garage.
Yeah,
No.
so how did that happen? I mean, there's some that are built.
Okay,
over-
so.
Yeah, they're already in there.
So what happened is this area was platted around the turn of the century in 1908. And amazingly enough, the surveying data that we recovered was very, very well done. But from 1908 until the 60s or 70s, there was no process around that made sure that those structures and where they were built within their own property. I mean, they're just, I don't remember when this was brought into the city from the county, but for many, many decades, there was probably no review service that even attempted out here. So a lot of those buildings got built where they assumed they were on their own property, but no official survey or checking was done. And here, you know, many of these are only over by, 5-6 feet. So if you made a wrong assumption at the time of building, that allowed these to be encroached. And a lot of times, if you look, there's very similar distance. So they all looked at each other. Once one error was made, they looked at the neighboring house and said, okay, we can be this close. We can be this close. And that's just what happened here, is a comedy of mismeasurements from an original mismeasurement. And our goal is to clean this up, get private property back on private property. Admittedly, we have way more right-of-way in this area than normal. I can't attest to the value that means to these lots. I'm sure it does add some value. What I would assume is that the assessor's office will catch that when they come back and do their next evaluations, which I'm assuming in this community is every 5 years, like most communities, and then those values would be adjusted accordingly, and then you'll collect that back through property tax revenue. But the other thing with trying to sell this property is that it's not a buildable area. So these are so small, most of these are 900 square feet. The largest one is 2,700 square feet, and the only reason that is because it's a long, odd-shaped piece here along the very west edge.
Shane,
It's hard. It would be really hard to sell that as usable land, I guess.
oh,
go ahead.
what is the advantage to the city to vacate?
Right
this?
now, if any one of these folks came along for a building permit, it makes it very, very ugly because they're building on a structure that's partially within public right-of-way.
Right, and you mentioned only 900 or 2,700. I was just throwing out that property just east of town here is going for like, $8, $9, $10 a square foot. So you are looking at a pretty good chunk of dollars that it would increase it by. But Ray, is there something?
Yes.
State your name, Ray, for us, will you?
Ray Ryland speaking. I was the individual who first approached the city on behalf of my client on a vacation of one property. I met with the city, we discussed it, and it was their desire that all of this property be brought in. These other landowners, they signed a petition, they're coming in. But I would tell you, if I told them, oh, by the way, you're gonna pay X for this, I don't think you'd had one person that would have signed it. But here's the problem you have out there. You have 14 structures, 10 of which are encroaching into the right-of-way. Somehow this city has allowed those people to do that over a long period of time. Who did it? Doesn't matter, and I don't know. But let's say their garage gets hit by a storm and they got to rebuild it. They can't because they're in the right-of-way. So here we have a homeowner comes in with a partially destroyed structure, comes to the city and says, I need a building permit. Says, sorry, we can't give you one. Wait a minute, you allowed me to build my house. Why are you now saying I can't rebuild? Well, the answer is of what Shane has been telling you. And for a long period of time, you don't even have right-of-way out there for utilities. And so it's a cleanup process that was requested by the city, not by the 15 or 14 people. So at this time, to come back and do that and ask for money, I wonder. You just vacated 2 properties here tonight. Not once did I hear anybody pay for those. You did a whole block up by the hospital, and you did another alley. And the subject of paying for those didn't come up. So why are we looking at this section when this was really the request of the city? Not the request of the...
The request isn't of the city. It was initiated by a homeowner out there, Ray.
It was
that got
initiated-
expanded.
It was
Okay, I
initiated
agree,
by-
but the original request was not
Right.
by the city.
It was initiated by Heath Rylance, my son.
Okay.
Came in, asked them what we do, and they said, no, we won't do one, but here's what we want to do.
Is
We'll do
is Heath, did he buy a house that he's going to be living in, or what's he doing out there?
Well, he's going to build a house once he can get a permit. Okay?
Going to build a house and on the property. I'm assuming he bought the property
He bought the property.
knowing that he was going to build on it there. So he's going to start from scratch, correct?
Well, he tore one down.
Exactly. So there's no value of that land, the most expensive land in town, there's no value of that additional 18
Well,
feet,
first,
right?
let me back up a little bit. First of all, before he purchased that property, the city of Watertown had granted an easement in that area for all the property that was there. The garage that sat there was halfway into the right-of-way. You couldn't do anything with it. And so if you're going to put up a structure, and with the rules that we have of the setback requirements from the lake and the different things we have to require, the question is, can we vacate a portion of it, get his property in line with the other property out there? And that's what the deal. Now, you're going to go from, you know, if you want to talk about the benefit to the city, you're going to take an old structure that really wasn't worth anything, had to be torn down, and you're going with a new structure, and so you're going to get quite a bit more back in terms of tax value if that's important. But the idea that these people out there wanted to gain this land, they weren't even aware of it. They were not even aware that 10 of the 14 structures encroach into the right-of-way. And so it's really a smart thing on the part of the city to do that, but to all of a sudden now say, we think we ought to be paid for it, I think is wrong, particularly under the way in which this was developed.
Shane, all of the items that the 10 properties, using Ray's numbers, the 10 properties that are encroaching on the right-of-way, has there been any building on that in the last 10 or 20 years that's well outside of the 60s that has been represented to us in regards to?
I can't speak to all of them, but there are several of them
There are many.
that are of older vintage.
Right, but there is a fair amount of new, fairly new construction that has encroached.
I don't know how many, I didn't count them, but there are several
So,
newer structures.
What we have is the only, and I've heard it in here many times, is build and then ask for forgiveness and come back to the city. But, you know, that's my position. I'm one of 10 people here.
Well,
I believe that there is, in my mind, there is justification for some kind of a fair market value to be gained by that abandonment.
In this particular case, I don't think we have a situation of these people building and then coming back and ask for forgiveness. They all built under permits granted by the city of Watertown. So, I mean, I think it's a miscarriage of the statement.
Right, and I would agree with that. Glenn, you got a question for him?
Shane, this came through the planning commission at the last meeting, right? I didn't attend or didn't.
A month ago,
didn't watch. I mean, were these conversations or issues raised at the planning commission discussion? And if so, how did they deal with it?
Well, we had a preliminary discussion even before this came to the planning commission that it was desirable from a building permit issuance standpoint to clean this area up. We identified that we had more right-of-way than we needed, and it was an untypical representation of a roadway through here. And we wanted to make sure that, A, we needed to know how far those structures were in the public right-of-way, and then B, see if it was possible to clean it up. That was the intention of staff, was to make this area easier to maintain down the road, issuing building permits, et cetera. I mean, think of this. I mean, the next thing that could have happened was maybe a new utility came to town, and they were intending to use the same corridor for utilities as what's out there, but then those utilities already exist. So if they start to move back towards those properties where we think the property line is, they're going to be boring equipment underneath the ends of garages, underneath structures, and we don't want that either. So our attempt was to clean this up, get all those back onto private property. We would still retain all the right-of-way that we need to maintain a roadway and all the utilities alongside the road, and make it coexist much more uniformly than it does right now.
And the lake has changed a lot. We don't have anybody putting up a summer cottage anymore. They're putting up dwellings that they're going to return big dollars back to the community when, like Ray said, you take I don't know what that house was worth, doesn't matter, but put in a new structure with some property, it will pay itself back very quickly. It seems to me like we just have to do, and the Plan Commission felt like they should get that in to straighten this out. We've been doing this out at the lake over and over and over again, trying to get this property out there straightened out, because it might have been a little loosey-goosey early on, but now we're trying to do it right, and I think it makes sense.
Guys, did we not do something out over there by the water tower for some reason? I was thinking we did maybe a year or so ago. You recall that? We squared that up?
I was going to just mention that I recall us doing this either in the sake of cleaning it up or, improving where this is. I can think of places in town, especially where we had non-conforming lots or things, because I think he was right, Ray, with people eyeballed. If the neighbor's house was here, then somebody else built here. And I think in town, we even have some of those same situations. And we have been, in my recollection, going through, like you said, Mayor, and kind of cleaning up some of these areas so that, because if somebody had to build a new garage in some of the places in town, they would not be able to because of our
Mr. Mayor, I can speak to that. About 2 or 3 years ago on South Lake Drive, over by the water tower as it curves right around, there was a big section of land there that was straightened up, and there was no charge in that particular case to the homeowners. And that, there's a depth of some of that was 35, 40 feet.
I had a couple of questions, Shane. Last time we had this at council, you said you had some issues with this size and making sure utilities went. You mentioned that the roadway, the actual road was not in the middle. Where is the road?
It turns out it's very well placed in the right of way.
Okay, and then as I look at this, at least mine that had the green on here, it looks on the other side like there's some buildings that are encroaching on the roadway. Down to the west, more toward the west end.
Down here?
Yeah, down over in there.
No, that's actually 2 sheds that are no longer there. There's a home built in one of those lots, but these
at least on this view, which maybe is an older one, looks like that's.
No, the only area on the vacation request and the only place where there's structures encroaching is on the north side by the lake.
So I think my last question, and Ray might even be better to answer that, is don't they have issues when they go to sell this property when they do a survey?
Well,
I'm having a little experience with this myself.
I'm familiar with. You know, they could. You know, how it got this way over a period of time, you know,
I mean, if a survey shows that their building is actually not on their property, it would seem like there'd be a problem.
There's a number of buildings where the garages or whatever you want to call these structures that are in the right of way. They're beyond the property line. And how it got that way, I don't know. And so you can't rebuild them in that area, even though they were granted a permit and nobody hollered at the time. Or there's a lot of things that happened around that lake over a long period of time that we don't have answers for.
But it just does seem like at some point in time, as the property sold, that something should have came up and said, with the title being transferred and generally having a survey done, that somebody should have been saying, well, you got a problem here, your buildings are not.
Well, we did have a survey done on the property, on the first property in question, so we knew where the property line was. Well, at least according to what we were given, okay? And so we knew where that was at. And then when we visited with the city down, just so everybody understands, the petition was drafted by the city, the 18 feet was picked by the city, and all the property owners were placed there by the city. And I went out and I personally talked to each one of the property owners, asked them to sign it, you know, if they would, and they did. Now, they weren't trying to get anything for nothing. They were trying to satisfy the city, is what it amounts to. And so I think with what you've done in the past at the lake, as recently as a couple of years ago over in South Lake Drive, to change now would be wrong, and to charge these people when they were not actively seeking to get it would clearly be wrong. It does clean up a big area out there. It does allow you to have a right-of-way for utilities, which you never had before. I asked Shane one day, I said, well, how in the heck did you put those utilities out here in people's property when you didn't even have one? Well, we just looked at each other and smiled and went about our business. But it's a cleanup measure by the city and should be approved.
Shane, what does that last statement mean? Where utilities were placed in a right-of-way that didn't even exist?
We weren't certain whether the utilities, without going through the effort that we did to retrace and define where these actual property lines are, there was a potential at one point in this process that some of these utilities could have been placed on private property.
Were they?
No.
So somebody, either by luck or by knowledge, placed them in the right spot.
Correct.
And they're in the right spot already, and they'll continue to have a place to be placed, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Shane,
again, I'm not questioning and I want to go back to a comment that was made about this being approved by the Plan Commission. The Plan Commission has the ability to come in and to make a recommendation to us on the abandonment, not on the method to which might be used for any land recovery. That's not their place to make that recommendation. I just want that to be understood.
Shane, do you agree with Mr. Rylance's comments as far as how this got initiated?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. Thank you.
I'm curious, Shane, what is your intention for the rest of the lake? Is this something that you guys are going to be doing? Are you going to be looking at other parts of the lake
No.
to square it up, or what?
We would only address these as they're brought to our attention and come forward. I'm not going to chase this type of issue. However, as older structures are removed along the lake and reconstructed with new buildings, I would expect that we'll find a couple more older areas of the lake. Primarily, these are probably in the areas of the lake that developed first. You know, the old stuff, you know, that's buildings that have been there for almost 100 years now or more. Those are the ones that we'll probably see this more on than the newer structures. There's better methods of us positioning those homes correctly, and surveying data is much more accurate and prevalent now, so we can retrace those. I don't see this being a huge issue but I can't say that it'll never come before us again.
It would seem to me that this is going to go all the way to the prop, you know, that kind of.
Potentially, yep. I would agree that would be an obvious area. However, we just had a building that's just slightly off this screen that I have up here that's a brand new one. He bought 3 lots, I think it was, and built a beautiful new home in there. But we were able to identify his pins, and he was able to build according to the existing right-of-way out there. For whatever reason, just down the street from him, in fact, he's in this open space right here is where I'm talking about. There's a pin for each side of his property, and he was able to properly locate his building within that lot. But just down the road from him was all of these obvious errors.
Shane, let me ask you a question. Is that person that built, are they in this petition?
They are not.
They are not. If they were to get 18 more feet, do you think that that property, now he bought 3 lots, typically a lot runs $150 to $200 a foot of frontage, right? 2,000 is it? I'm sorry, yeah. Pushing $2,000 per lakefront foot, okay? Do you think that adding 18 more feet onto his lot would add any value to that property?
I didn't need to ask him there, but
without question it would.
I mean,
significantly. And that's
right. But all lots are evaluated by an assessor, and a value set accordingly. That's where engineers are asked to fix things like this that encroach in right-of-ways or get those structures. Let's put it this way. The other option is to ask all of these structures to be removed from public right-of-way.
I got to go back to what Mr. Ryland said earlier, too. Did we try to put a value on the piece of property we just vacated for Prairie Lakes Hospital? Absolutely not. What would the value of that block of alleyway be? Who knows?
To address Mike's question on this new house, the width of the road there, the right-of-way doesn't permit 18 feet. That's why the city stopped where they stopped, because the road narrows back down. You have 88 feet for a period of, but you don't have that all the way.
Is there any other sections that are that wide around the lake that we might address this in the future?
Well, we'll identify those as we need to.
Would you see that if that need came up, you would address a section at a time to clarify, I mean, to clean it up for?
Yeah, I don't want to change right-of-way widths lot by
Yeah, I mean, so that's what I don't want, you know.
That's not smart management.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions for Shane?
Mayor, I have a conflict here, so I'm recusing myself.
Okay. So Don will recuse himself from this vote. So I think I will. I'm going to look for council action on this. At this time, I will ask those all in favor. Please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Should we get a roll call on that? It sounded like there was 2, but you should probably, I think there was 2 opposed.
I can do roll call vote. You want me to do roll call vote?
I think we should. Let's do that.
Okay. Albertson?
Yes.
Bueller? No. Danforth?
No.
Manty?
Yes.
Riefenberger? Roby?
Abstain.
Recuse? Solom?
Yes.
Tupper?
Yes.
Vilhauer?
Yes.
Okay. Motion carries.
Okay, thank you, Shelley. Thanks,
Thank you.
everybody. Thanks, Ray. Get on the right number here. Number 10, renewal of the cable communications franchise agreement with the City of Watertown. What we're looking at here, folks, is VAST and Midco are actually, it's time to renew our franchise agreement that the city gets. We included a copy of that, and what I'll do is I'm going to look for a motion in a second, and then Lisa, you can kind of explain. You've had, discussions with Dan and others. So I'll look for a motion in a second for discussion. Motion by Bruce, second by Beth. And then, Lisa, if you'll give us a little update on that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Lisa Carrico. We received duplicate franchise agreements from VAST and Mid-Continent. They were basically replications of the franchise agreements that have been in the past. Under your ordinance, you have up to 15 years for a term. In these agreements, there's a 10-year term. The only correction I would ask that you make if you do approve these franchise agreements is that the reference should be to Chapter 7.14 in the ordinance rather than 7.04. The cable television regulatory ordinance is actually 7.14. And then we would just ask VAST and MidCom to send us fresh agreements with that correct reference.
Perfect. So basically, nothing changes in this contract than what the city has been operating on for numerous years.
And it calls for a 5% payment as their franchise fee of
Exactly.
their revenues.
Yeah, and Shelley, you receive that payment. Is it an annual payment, or you get a monthly payment from the cable companies?
Is that 5%, do we negotiate that, or is that regulatory or statutorily set? How is that 5% arrived at?
For some, I don't believe they're, well, let me.
No, I think that was actually negotiated.
It could be. I mean,
yeah.
I've been here since 2004, and it's been 5% since I've been here. So if it was negotiated, it was probably negotiated at the beginning and has never changed.
Yeah, I think the firm that the city of Watertown hired actually negotiated that for us. The city did go out and hire a law firm out of the cities that specialized in franchise agreements. That franchise agreement, the first one was with Mid-Continent, and it has since been adopted by Prairie Wave and now VAST and so forth. One of the things you have seen, even though the 5% has stayed the same, your cable bills have gone up dramatically, as well as our payments then on a monthly basis.
Do we know how that percent, how that relates or correlates to other communities? Is that a rate that other
We do
communities
have,
are
we
paying
do have
on their
a
franchise
gentleman-
agreements?
Yeah, we have a gentleman here. If you want, come on up and state your name, how many kids you got, all that kind of good stuff.
I have lake property in another jurisdiction. So
There you go.
I could relate. My name's Brett Ritter. I work with Fast Broadband. To answer the question, I'm not an attorney. I do know that we do not pay franchise fees higher than 5% in any community. We serve over 50 communities in a 3-state area. 5% is fairly common.
That's a pretty good answer, yeah. Thank
The
you.
remainder of
Thanks,
the
Brett.
language in the agreements is basically a replica of what you already require in your city ordinance. So it was basically a regurgitation in the actual agreements, so.
You guys got any questions for Brett? How to get free cable or anything like that, you know? How to tap into that HBO? Okay, we all good? All right, let's look for council action. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thanks, Brett. I'm glad you were here. Oh, on that motion, we want to make sure that it was referenced for the chapter 7.04 rather than 7.14. Or the opposite. It should be 714, not 704. Okay. Number 11, consideration of change order number 2 to the contract with Industrial Process Technology Incorporated for the ultraviolet disinfection improvements project and authorization to issue final payment in the amount of $25,287.93. This time what I'll do, I'll look for a motion and a second for discussion. Motion by Randy, second by Beth. So Shane, you want to fill us in on this?
Sure. The ultraviolet disinfection improvements project has been completed. You'll find in your packet a letter from the consulting engineer, basically stating all the facts that the project was completed within schedule and in compliance with their plans and specifications. So they prepared the final payment and documents for acceptance by the city. City staff has also indicated that they're satisfied with the results of the project, so here we are presenting the final documents to the council for acceptance and approval of the final payment. I do want to note that the final change order is a deduct in the amount of $6,500 for work that was not needed during the project, so that essentially reduced the contract down to $232,179.26. And I am making a special request with the issuance of the check because I did not get this in time to have a check issued in your normal monthly bills.
Any questions for Shane on this? And are we okay with, Shelley, can you guys do the special check like that with this request? It's ready, okay. Any other questions? Hearing none, I'll look for council action. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Number 12, discussion on hiring a marketing firm for retail development in Watertown. I just wanted to, really, no action on this tonight. What I wanted to do was just bring you guys up to date. It took forever to get any information back from Retail Coach. Retail Coach was the second presenter to us. In the meantime, Buxton has come back to us, and you know, I've never been really thrilled with Buxton, but maybe there was just a disconnect between the Watertown Development Company and the City of Watertown, who they were working for, and what our intentions were. So they came up here. We had a great visit. We drove through town and talked about a lot of things. They asked me if I would allow them to come in and give you a third option, and I granted that wish for that. So they will be up here, Buxton, on July the 18th in our work session, so we can have one more look at marketing retail. And I think it's good that we did that, you know, because we have used them. They understand Watertown. They know where we're at, and so forth. So if you're okay with that, that's the direction we'll go.
Mayor, I've got one question. Are we not already under some sort of contract with Buxton?
No, that has since expired.
That's expired, okay.
Yeah, they go year by year, and you need to go. And they're a little bit more money than the other ones that we're talking about. So,
Mayor, when we're done here, will some kind of a spreadsheet be laid out that shows, so we can see what it looks like as far as what they offer, what it costs us, any other pertinent terms then?
Absolutely. We will have each proposal. We'll have those proposals broke down. We'll probably be asking the development company to look further into that for us and break it down, since they're accustomed to the Buxton. That work for you guys? All right. Number 13, old business. Raj and Jay, you guys want to come up? I want to talk. I don't know if this is old business or new business, but the lake's pretty old, so I want to talk about the lake a little bit and what's going on with the lake levels. People are concerned about certain things. They're concerned that we have weirs open. If you guys want to just either one start up. I know, Jay, you've got kind of an issue out there with the golf course. People seem to think they're running into pipes. Maybe just give us a heads up on what you're seeing out there.
Well, you know, we've done a lot of investigation along that irrigation intake line. It runs out into Lake.
Jay? State your name and stuff quick first.
Jay DeLang, Parks Rec and Forestry Director. The irrigation intake line extends into the lake 1,560 feet. And that, according to Todd Walker, our golf course superintendent, it had to go out that far because it was required that we had to be 4 to 4.5 feet of clear water, even in a severe drought situation. And so that's why it's out there 1,560 feet. Now, I went through the plans this afternoon, and the bottom of the lake in that location at the end of the line where the screen is at 1,509, and the screen itself is up 1 foot. And the lake level today was 15.5. So I would doubt there would be...
What's that mean? Give me, depth of the water. Tell me what that means.
Basically, we'd have 5.5 feet between the top of the structure and the lake level presently. So, you know, I just feel that prop couldn't have really hit that. And, you know, there's been some other issues that people say there's a mound or something in the lake in that location. We have done extensive searches, not only with Game Fish and Parks, but in the last couple of weeks, Cottington County Search and Rescue, they were out there with their side scanning sonar unit and spent a great deal of time trying to find something and never found anything. So evidently there's something there, but I don't know what or where.
And really, if there's any questions that you have for these two gentlemen, just go ahead and let them rip.
So basically, all you're saying, you determine it is not your inlet that's causing this situation.
with all the investigations we've done, it doesn't appear to be.
Jay, I called you about that. Maybe I should talk to him again and say, can you specifically show where that is? Because it'd be nice to know if it's not the end, because he said he didn't know. He just thought it might be because it's about where that was, where he thought it was. But maybe he should express his, just show us. I think John would do that. I think he'd be happy to say, here's where I ripped my propeller.
Yeah, if we can pin it down to a certain location, but I don't know where that's at.
Yeah.
The investigation.
Go ahead, Beth.
Just reconfirming that the investigation didn't show any damage to the pipe that would have indicated that a prop hit it or any of that kind of stuff?
No, nothing like that. Most of the intake line is under the surface of the lake. There's as it gets to the end, probably from 1300 to 1560, there is a slight mound, but it's very slight, and then the screen itself sets up a foot.
To that you
No,
could see.
no.
And I can't imagine, Jay, with the sonar capability, I mean, just for the fishing boat these days, it's incredible. I mean, you'd be able to find that in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
If you had any idea where that line was. So I just can't believe that you wouldn't have seen something with that.
And the Cottington County folks, they said that in water depths like that, they should be screening out 30 to 40 feet. So that gives a pretty good indication of hopefully finding something, and they found nothing.
Jay, how close do we know what the proximity out from Jackson Park out there somewhere is? It supposedly the mystical big flat rock. Do we know where that's at in regards to the location of our pipe that goes out into the lake?
I do not. Roger, can you help us out with that?
Be a great place. Be a great place to fish for walleye if we can find it. But no, I've never heard of the flat rock.
Well, it's in there. And matter of fact, if the public opinion denotes that rock in there when they're publishing the watch out for these areas right now, they denote it in there.
I thought they were actually showing that they thought that was the intake for the golf course. I thought that's what they were showing on that map because they've had concerns on that intake also.
No, there is a rock that is out from Jackson Park area, and it's 200-300 feet or yards out there, I think, is typically what I've always heard. It's just curious as to where that's exactly at, and I think you'll find there is one there. I mean, it's got to be in the same general area as what this line is.
One of the things that concerns me about the lake, and we have these low spots. We've got, sandbars and things that are people hitting. Jay, we've talked to the game fish and parks about marking some of them, and I remember what the answer was. Can you tell me, as a ex-game fish guy, why they're not marking them?
Well, basically, the policy was that from a liability standpoint, if you go around and mark 14 objects and miss number 15, and there's a situation there, then you're very liable. So in return, none of the potential areas were marked by the state.
Jay, but to follow up on that, that's for natural hazards, right?
Right.
As I understand it, we have an obligation to mark man-made hazard, but you're saying this inlet valve is not a hazard.
I'm not saying that definitively, but all the investigations we've done, we've not found anything to be.
Can you also tell me then, Jay, Roger, we'll get over here to here pretty quick, but the golf course is using water out there, and one of the concerns that has been coming to us is that by using the sprinkler system, the irrigation system at the golf course, where you're draining the lake. What is the amount of water as far as inches go every time you you irrigate. Do you know that?
No.
I do not know that. I would have to check with Todd. He might have a gallon rate, but I would assume evaporation would be far greater than what we would be taking from the lake
up
through
until
the intake.
up until just a few years ago when they built a new well field up north, all of us use the lake. You know, so what the golf course is using compared to what the whole community used to use.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. In fact, it's very minuscule what is coming out of there by the time they use it. So, Roger, if you can give us a little update on the weirs. That's another question that's coming in by the handfuls. You know, they're saying that the weirs are open, the weirs are closed. One is just a little spot for the fish to come out. My understanding of the weir up on the river is different than what I think we understand it to be, and maybe you can enlighten us a little bit on some of these things.
I'll try. But first, to get back to your question, then it escapes me. When the water treatment plant was pulling as much water as it could, like 1,000 gallons a minute, in my discussions with the utility department, Jeff DeVille would tell me that they could actually lower the lake 2 inches when they're going full blast. But then they would shut it off and it would come right back up again. So the amount of water that they're using to water the golf course with is not going to have a significant impact on the lake's overall water level because the lake is aquifer fed. As the aquifer levels come down, the lake level will also come down. And that's the real issue out there, is the overall aquifer level of water. So as far as the golf course pumping it dry, I don't think they can do it. They need bigger pumps. But as far as the weir near Lunkers with the 2 gates in it, the purpose of that weir is to provide seasonal protection from the dirty water that comes down with the spring flush. When the river rises, it hits that weir, the dirty water bounces off that weir and continues on down the river, and we try to keep the first flush away from the lake. And in the years of the study that we've been doing, it's really done a good job of that. The spreadsheet, or the flow chart for the water levels, kind of a pun on words there, that I handed out earlier, and it's up on the screen. This is the flow chart that the utility department uses to designate whether or not the gates are to be closed. We have another one very similar for when they're to be opened. This is the open, and I have one to show when it's closed. These levels are based off the plant ratings that we've been doing for over the last 100 years. The elevation is just slightly different. If you look at Jay's water level that he gets from the NOAA's website, it's 1/10 or so different than what we're using with the stick in the plant. I think most of you guys have seen that stick. That's just technology has changed, but the lake is still there. So basically we are just an inch or so above the level where those gates need to be opened. The reason, all this stuff was set when the weir was constructed in 2001. I think 2001 is when they put it in, about a year or so before I started with the city. So I don't know if these decisions were planned in state law, in statute, or the Board of Water and Natural Resources set those, or the Corps of Engineers. Still trying to find that, and Jeff DeVille was gone today. He's the one that really knows. So when the lake level gets below the 1715.3, the gates will be opened, and that's to allow river water to come in and refill the lake. That's probably not going to happen this year until next spring, but that was the purpose of opening it once we get to that 30 inches below full stage. And once the river or the lake rises up to 17.8, they'll close the gates again to prepare for the first flush, or for the most of the dirty water coming down the river system. It's kind of confusing, but if we do open the gates right now, it will have very little, if any, impact at all on lake level. Because the lake level is going down with the aquifer, it's not running out into the river. Even though there is a slight flow through the fish notch right now, I would say the differential between lake level and river level is about a half an inch right now at the most. So there is a little bit of a flow out, and that's because of the aquifer is recharging the lake and creating that flow as it goes down the river. Can I make that any more confusing for you guys?
No,
I think you made it pretty
helps.
simple.
Is there not two weirs? And was the one further north on the river has been breached for a number of years? That is not, that's a wooden structure.
There's actually a sheet pile structure, I think it's Forestburg Park, north of Forestburg Park, on the river itself. And that weir is the one that is supposed to set the permanent water level for Lake Kempesca. And that's been breached as long as I can remember. There's erosion around the outside of it.
You guys got any questions about lake levels? I know that there's I've been approached numerous times, and I'm just sure that you guys have also, and it is confusing. So that's why we have you here tonight.
Roger, I've got a question. If we do open the gate, you said it's not going to significantly impact the level of the lake. What's going to be the quality of the water that's going to be coming in from the river, though?
Depends on how the rest of the year goes. If we get enough rainfall up in the watershed area so that it comes down through the aquifer and raises the lake from inside, then we can shut the gates. Water quality would be fantastic. Unfortunately, this year, like in 2012 and 2003, the gates will be open during the snowmelt period. Hopefully we'll get more clean water than dirty water and be able to shut the gates before the real nasty stuff gets here. That's the protocol that the designers came up with when they installed the thing.
Roger, is this something we could post on GovTV or?
Yes.
Okay, maybe you already are. I don't know.
I think that'd be good, Spence.
We can
work with
put those
Roger and
both
get it on there. Yeah. You know, I went by on the Sioux River today. I don't believe the ducks were swimming; they were walking on top of that water.
Yes.
What's the deal? Is it that's all duckweed?
A couple people have mentioned to me that, you know, take a look at the river and take a look at the lake, and which one do you like better? But yes, that's mostly duckweed in the river, with some various algae and some aquatic plants.
Yeah, I learned a couple years ago, don't call it green slime to Rogers, so.
Is there any river flow at all as it comes by the inlet at Kempesca? I mean, if I drive along 14th, it would appear like there's no water flow there.
Very
No, it looks
little
like a
in
mud.
places. Because the river and the aquifer, you know, are so intimately connected, you can have a little bit of flow here and nothing there, and then it surfaces again a little further down. I haven't really seen any flow through town recently, but there is a slight flow coming out of the lake today.
If there's a recharge that takes place, albeit less today than what it has been in past years, if the weirs are closed, would we see either a reduced rate of the lower levels, or would we see a recharge at all? I hate to see a weir be open to put water into the river, albeit a half an inch, when the river doesn't need it. It's not going anywhere. It's just going to go out there into the mud. And it just seems like in times like this, we shouldn't allow any water to go out of our lake. It's not helping the river.
I agree with you. However, this has been set to where it's going to take major political will to change this.
But I think what you're saying, Mike, is that hole where the supposedly fish can go through. I mean, can we close that without asking anybody, or put a piece of plywood in there?
There's only, yeah. You know how many times a little bit of nighttime modification has gone on out there? There's been dynamite, there's been torches, there's been all kinds of modifications. I was out there and measured it today. The fish notch only has an inch, maybe an inch and a half of water in it. So as the levels go down, that's going to stop completely. But then again,
But the lake goes down an inch and a half, is what you're saying, before it stops.
Yes, and that lake is going to go down an inch and a half, whether or not we do board that thing up. It'll make no difference.
Okay. One last question I have for you, and they might have others. In your opinion, do you feel as though we should take this dry opportunity to clean up some of the obstacles, the obstructions in the river?
I think that would be a great idea. If we can put together some sort of group to take a look through there, I'll definitely volunteer my time and kayaks or whatever it takes to go through and survey and figure out what it is that we need to do.
I think we should do that, you know, at least take a look. Maybe you want to just get a group together and maybe one of the council people or two or whatever would go with you and
Beth, just
report
volunteer.
back to us as soon as you can, because you don't get, I mean, let's make, you know, it's an opportunity to do this.
Sounds great.
Guys okay with that?
Areas of the river, my husband and I walked it where, and I think you made reference to it up on 14th, there's areas of the river now where it's essentially just sort of a little mud crawl, you know, so it would be very easy now to kind of see what was, rather than digging through 12 feet of water, when we've got the bottom now.
Yeah, because I think, Roger, you mentioned that some of the farms out here have been digging in their dugouts, and they're going down, what, 12, 14 feet?
Yes, on the western side of the watershed, on the top of the Coteau, we're starting to see a lot of these dugouts go dry completely, and then as we clean them out back down to that 12-foot level, they're not recharging because the water is slowly making its way down to the lower portions of the aquifer. Yeah, it's getting dry out there.
Any questions for Roger or Jay while we have them up here? Thanks, guys. I appreciate it. That was really good information for us. Okay, that was any other old business that needs to be discussed?
Mayor, I had sent you an email, you and Shane an email, and then given Shane some, you know, some forewarning that I was going to ask about an update on the Cherry Drive drainage area up there. I know you guys gave a good response on that. I think we got a lot of anxious people up there that are wondering what's happening. You know, I think they have expected some things to occur by now, especially in a dry year, to get it done. So if we could give an update on that, secondarily to that, not everybody, I'm assuming, is going to watch this. I do believe we owe it to them to get some kind of notification out there as to what the status of that thing is. So,
And that can certainly happen. Shane, I know that you're working closely with the Corps. I thought it would be something much simpler than what it's turned out to be.
Yeah,
But you can fill us in on that.
Yeah, I have it up on that area up on my screen if somebody wants to put it up. But the corridor that we're talking about is essentially bounded by 10th Avenue on the south and 14th Avenue on the north, roughly. There are several areas in there that have aquatic vegetation in them, and so therefore the question is raised as to whether those are jurisdictional wetland areas or non-jurisdictional. And the only folks that can assist the city in making that decision, or primary folks I should say, is the Corps of Engineers. So we have sent them some correspondence requesting a determination as to whether those areas are jurisdictional or non-jurisdictional, and that will greatly impact how we approach the design or project that was proposed up there. So we need to know what we can do by having that determination from the Corps.
So
and
what kind of a time frame you looking at?
I don't know. That was about 2 weeks ago that we sent that to them. Well, might even be 3 now, towards the beginning of June. I can reach out to the Corps and see what the status is of that, and that's about as far as I can answer that question at this point.
I would think that would be important, and let's get the status and tell them to hurry it up a little bit.
Sure.
Shane, what does that mean to the project, though? Has a design been established for that area like we had said would occur? And what does that mean if part of it's jurisdictional versus some being non-jurisdictional? What does that mean to getting the project going and done?
If it's jurisdictional wetlands, we would need to prepare a report and plan to either, in other words, if we have to destroy wetlands by putting in pipes and draining those, then we have to have a plan to rebuild wetlands somewhere else, if they're jurisdictional. If they're non-jurisdictional, it gives us a little more leeway on what we can and can't do in there. Essentially, this is an old drainage area that was created by the glacier when it receded. water has historically always gone down this channel, and now we've built houses up both sides of it. And as I understand it, now granted, this is before I came to the city, but we have categorically purchased land up through that whole area with the intention of it being wet or being able to store water or convey water without damaging the properties around it. Now, whether that means that people have to look at wetlands and or cattails or put up with mosquitoes is a different question. But clearly we've intended this area to be a drainage basin, and we're trying to maintain it like a mowed lawn, and those don't always coexist exactly. And primarily, I will say this, there appears, and the engineer that's designing this, first of all, I'll say that he has the plans just about completed. He just has been too busy to get them polished up and to me, but he's assured me that it's essentially 100% complete, just a couple loose ends to tie up. Secondly, he has acknowledged that there's probably a perched water table up there, and we're seeing that with every basement that's dug. Everybody has a sump pump, and those sump pumps never shut off. What that tells us as engineers is that, I mean, Roger talks about the aquifer down at the lower end being depleting, but there still remains a suspended aquifer up in the top of that hill that we haven't dewatered yet with all of the basements that we've dug up there. So those areas stay wet unnaturally because we're pumping the water out of the basements onto the surface of the ground. Normally those would be all dry this year, and you wouldn't even have water sitting up there.
In this dry time, are the houses still, are there sump pumps still running water out?
Absolutely. Yep, we did some grading up by the new rec center along the upper ends of that wetland up there. It's just as wet today as it was 4 or 5 years ago. Yep. And we're pumping that water out of the basements onto the surface of the land, and it's collecting in all these low areas along these drainage ditches. So,
okay.
In answer, our recap, we'll wait for the jurisdictional determination from the Corps. That'll tell us what we can and can't do, or if we have to take a different approach to solving the problem.
Thank you, Shane. Any other old business that we want to bring up?
Mayor, do you want to address the garbage pickup one more time, because we're right in the middle of that cycle now, as far as who's getting it picked up on Friday?
Okay. All right, here we go. This has been interesting to say the least. But with the holiday that happened on the 4th of July, we actually picked the garbage up last Friday. So then we because then you go through that week, so we picked it up Friday, so that we skip
for those
Monday.
that have Monday pickup.
Yeah, this just Monday pickups. So then we go ahead and we have the holiday now, which was Sunday and Monday, and as we all know, the lake swelled to just thousands of people out there, and there's a lot of garbage. So we are actually having on that particular route, Monday's route, will be picked up again this Friday. Just so you know, so this coming Friday of this week, that route will be picked up, all of that route. And then come back to the following Monday again, then we're just on our normal pickup. So we are getting through this this particular time. Hope it doesn't happen again, but if it does, we'll address it and see where it goes.
So just to clarify, it's not just the Monday pickup in the lake area, it's the Monday pickup in our ward as well.
It's the entire Monday pickup, yep, they will do that.
We all know
what?
I happen to live in that district too, but I just want to remind everybody that this exact scenario will replay itself on Labor Day weekend.
Yep. Labor
But you won't deal with it over a 2-weekend deal then? Oh, yeah?
Yeah, we'll
It's the
deal
same
with
number
that
of
when we
days
come back in, so.
Labor Day as it is right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just seems like the 4th of July, there's so much garbage. And I will tell you that the folks that out at City Park did a great job in picking up their trash. The garbage cans were full. We were picking them up, so that was very, very nice. Bruce, you had something you wanted to say?
I did. This is for new business, I guess, but just a sort of an update. I did a little check-in today with First District in regards to the sign ordinance and kind of where we're at with that. And Mayor, correct me if I'm wrong or if you need to fill in some blanks, but my understanding is that in lieu of the building official changes, that that kind of put that on hold a little bit. And I guess in May we had, most everybody probably had a copy of the current ordinance revisions, and hopefully everybody's had an opportunity to kind of review that. But it sounds like we'll be able to meet again, and my assumption is that, you know, we'll probably discuss that, but at some point we'll bring in other people from the community that would be involved in signs, business people, whoever, in a group like we did years ago when we did the sign ordinance to begin with. But there are a lot of people I know that are anxious to get this thing completed. So once our new building official, or what is the actual planner, I'm sorry, the planner gets her feet under her, I think it would be good to address that, to get that process down the road, kick it down the road a little bit so we can get it finished.
And I think we have to throw some of the blame on that sign ordinance to Justin, only because the Supreme Court kind of threw a snafu at us on that whole thing. So
what do you want from an engineer trying to practice law? You know, I don't know. But the other thing I wanted to mention, is that I think we need to sort of expedite the whole process for and maybe we are, Mayor, maybe I'm not privy to it, but we do need to get things rolling if we're going to market the new airline. You know, if we're going to get the word out, if this thing's starting to move, we've got to, or I'm just afraid it's going to die on the vine with lack of interest or question, you know, people with question marks. So I think it would behoove us to move on that as soon as possible, and perhaps you have plans already in the
we
works.
are waiting for, you know, we applied for a $100,000 grant for marketing. I think that really will be shown up here shortly, and those dollars will be put in just for marketing. ADI put in, I think it was $12,000. They're going to use for marketing, but we're ready. We're ready for that. As you know, you can now get tickets off of United or Expedia or Travelocity, go from here to Denver, and to hook up through other airlines through the Denver hub. So we're excited on that. That will start August the 15th as the first flight. I really think that we as a council and as news people and everybody, we should try to, we requested 20 tickets to go have that Denver omelet like you talked about, Bruce, and just go there. It's that'll be a council day if we leave at 6:30 on the first flight and get back here by 2 o'clock. Everything going well, it should be perfect.
I just have one other comment I wanted to make, Mayor, if I could.
Yep.
and I just want, I'm sure there's other folks that feel the same way, but just kind of I'd like to give some kudos to the folks that supported the fireworks this weekend. You know, the Salvation Army, the Chamber, the staff at Redland with Julie Random, and all the volunteers, fire department, law enforcement, everybody just stepped up. I think we've got a few issues that we need to look at, which you're probably aware of. The food vendor thing where you don't put a chubby kid like me, 70 yards back to get a funnel cake. That just, that you miss half the show. And
well, not only that, but you're not going to share with anybody.
Randy's right there with me now.
Yeah, you're not going to share with anybody neither.
But here's the thing. I think we really need to relook at, it was, I think, probably way more people than we anticipated. And which is great. I mean, I think it was a true success, and Mayor, kudos to you as well.
Not only just the fireworks and stuff at the Redland Center, but the whole weekend. I mean, we couldn't ask for a better weekend. Everything went off. If that's all we're going to worry about is some traffic issues, which
I didn't get to that yet. But
no, you didn't get to that yet.
So
you're still
training first, Randy.
You're still mad you didn't get that funnel cake in time.
Yeah, that's right. It's still torquing me off a little bit. But no, I think there's some things if we were able to expand that would certainly be nice.
What a wonderful weekend in Watertown, though. I mean, you
great.
just can't.
It was great.
People are just amazed at all the stuff that happens. So.
Didn't we have some really good hotel occupancy? And I know that just in the area where I was parked, there was Nebraska, Wisconsin, South Dakota, North Dakota, and Minnesota plates, just in that little area there.
When I was leaving, and I actually was looking at plates, and I would say at least 50% that I saw where I was.
How did you see those plates with that funnel cake like that?
Well, there's a hole in the middle.
It was great turnout. Occupancy at the hotels, our major hotels out east of town, were 100% full, and everybody was asking if we're going to do it next year, and we certainly, all intentions are to do it next year. And one of the problems at the funnel cake thing, Bruce, some guys, not naming names or anything, would go up there and then they'd order 6 at a time rather than one.
I know, I offered a guy $100 for.
I know. No, but
No deal.
we do realize, we had a meeting today, just kind of a recap of what happened at the show. We were very, very excited about the numbers of people that were there. We as a group, and I'll take full blame on this, underestimated what was going to happen. The power of Facebook and the advertising we did. There was dollars spent in Wisconsin and in Minnesota beyond Watertown. We estimate that there was close to, now this is viewers and this is the cars outside. We know there was about 7,000 people on the Redland grounds, just to give you an idea, and what, 5 vendors? Yeah, that will be expanded greatly next year. And overall, we think there was close to 20,000 people that were out there watching this show within Watertown. It was just absolutely incredible. So parking is an issue. We need to deal with that. We're going to talk about that now at our next meeting coming up. It's going to be a better plan. This kind of came upon us very unexpectedly that this was going to happen like it did. But I will tell you that everybody that stepped up, it was just absolutely incredible. And you're right, Julie Ranum, Julie Knudsen, Megan from the chamber, the police department, the fire department. You know, we had all those people. And Jim from emergency management, Jim Sutton, he pulled it off. You know, he didn't have many volunteers. He didn't know about it. And everybody kind of had it planned. So he picked up about 20 volunteers. It was just absolutely incredible what they pulled off. Next year will be a bigger show. We're looking at now to have more of a full day that people can come, and there'll be bands kind of playing throughout the day, and there will be more things for kids to do. There'll be you know, those air houses or whatever, those bouncy things that will be out there. We'll pray for no wind. And it should be really, really good.
Me and Bruce can each hold one down.
I would.
We
like
can only
to,
go one at a time, right?
I would like to make a comment about the burnout, and that was fun, guys. And I think it's going to be a much bigger event next year. I've never seen Randy smile quite as big a smile as he has, and the fear in my eyes when I was riding in his Hellcat. And I don't know if you know what that is, but it's a 2016 Charger with horsepower between 500 and 700 horse. And we didn't allow the police to come out there right away. Yeah, it was amazing. Thank you for that ride.
Yeah, that was kind of a look of fear in your eyes, but I had been a look of fear in my eyes that the police would have been behind us also.
And I got a little story to tell you. It was kind of funny. I was driving my car out of the airport, and all of a sudden, here comes the lights on behind me. The police were pulling me over right away. I pulled over, and here Randy got out of a police car.
And it was the front seat.
Yeah, he was driving. And he said, "Sir, can I see your license and registration?" So we had a really good time at the burnout. Next year, I think we're going to kind of slide that out into Todd. I hope you're watching on this, Todd Syrie. We're hoping that you can shut off some airspace and we can get that out on the taxiway. So we've got about maybe a little over a quarter mile for some of these cars to go, because a lot of them, the cars didn't want to spin. They wanted to bite, man, and they wanted to go. They were popping over those what do you call them, chalk boxes. Yeah, they were jumping over those, and Mike, you'll be able to get your car out there. You don't even need to spin the wheels, just show us what it does. There was cars out there that had wheelie bars on the back, and they wanted to light them up. Boy, I tell you, it was fun.
There was a little bit of everything out there.
There
From what about, how old was she, about 10 years old? Little gal on that little motorcycle?
10-year-old, yeah.
To,
Squealing the tires on that motorcycle like you wouldn't believe.
to a front-wheel drive delivery van from one of the local flower shops.
What kind of crowd?
Oh, what did you say, Randy?
I said there was everything from that to the front-wheel drive van from one of the flower
I
shops,
know.
so.
Blossom Flowers had their car there, trying to spin the tires on the front of that thing, couldn't do it. So Todd's got this big payloader, hooked a chain up to it, held the car back, and she started lighting them up.
Oh, yeah.
And smoke was just rolling out of there, and it was just funner than heck. But I tell you what, Shelley told us early on in the week, she says, make sure that if the wind's out of the south, you put the bleachers on the north. Sure enough, wind's out of the south, bleachers are on the north side. The wind just blew all over in us, and I got home and Chris says, wow, you need to take a shower right now. That just smelled like burnt rubber. It was crazy.
And I didn't get Lee's permission to do that, but if I can do that again, if I can pull him over, give me the keys to the police car, that was fun.
But what was the comment over here? So you said something, Mike, to me. Just
What
now.
kind of crowd?
Oh, the crowd. I think we had 350 people there.
350 people came through the gate and paid.
Yep.
There was a bunch of people we seen parked elsewhere that just walked through, so I'm gonna estimate we had 450 to 500.
Yeah, it was a
And
great crowd.
They paid out over $3,600 in prize money to the people, the participants, so it was good. It was just fun. I mean,
Great showing.
Yep.
Great showing.
There was everything from old rusty rust buckets to some of these cars were.
Guys were even spinning the tires so much that they blew their tires out.
Yep.
Yeah. You could hear them as they're out there, and all, boom, there go tires.
That was an old beat up pickup. So.
Yeah, it was fun though. So, any ideas for next year? Pass them on to me. Let's get Watertown rocking and rolling for 4 days, because next year we got Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. The fireworks will be on the 3rd of July. We're just going to kind of plan on it always being the 3rd. Okay?
And you are going to get the T-shirt cannon.
Yes, we're going to get a T-shirt cannon out there. I told Beth, I said, we need one of those T-shirt guns. You know,
I got access to the biggest one ever made. I can shoot 3 T-shirts at one time. Oh yeah.
Let's get it done.
Or one that fits you, Randy.
What's that? Well, even T-shirts that fit me. So.
Write it down.
Hey, he gets me all the time. So.
Write it down. We're going to do that.
Mayor, just can I make one other comment?
No.
This is just.
Oh, I suppose being president. Sure.
No. I talked to the Salvation Army guys. Just asked them if they were getting a lot of donations, and they said it was pretty good, but a lot of folks didn't know where the hell to drop this stuff off. So I'm thinking, if we had drop points, if we intend to do that again next year, if we had drop points at certain entry areas that people could just stop and put it in, that would maybe be beneficial.
Yep. Yeah, I know they did have a lot of cash donations. They had a lot of canned goods brought, but it was up at the big truck at this particular time, and I think Jenkins actually gave free water to everybody. So it was just, I tell you what, for the short time we got to put this together, it was an amazing.
It just tells you a lot about the community that we live in. So
it does. It does. I tell you, they're all on board. So you took us into new business. Is there any other new business you guys need to talk about?
I just have a combination of liaison reports and public service announcement.
Okay, so we're going to move out of new business and go into liaison member reports.
Okay. Basically what it is it's kind of a rehash now that it's summer and there's more business downtown and things are getting more busy. I would really like to encourage business owners and their employees to take advantage of the city parking lots, and we're doing a good job of getting them all fixed up in the alleys. I've been taking a lot more complaints lately about from business owners who the neighboring business owners are parking in front of their businesses, and that's just good common courtesy to go ahead and park into city parking lots. And all of us who've ever worked in any kind of business know that we don't park in front of our buildings either. So just a good reminder to, summer is great, summer is fun, we've got a lot of things going, so, just be really courteous, and as we fix up those awesome parking lots, which we are, right, Shane? They're going to be awesome, yep. Okay, to take more advantage of those. And I just wondered, too, if a new mailing couldn't go out with all the updated parking lots and things so people know. That's my...
Okay, and just one last comment I wanted to make about the parade that was in town on the 4th. Turned out really nice. It was a long parade. Took a couple hours to watch it go through, so that was all good. Any need to go into executive session? Guess not. I will look for a motion, a second to adjourn. So moved. Motion by John, second by somebody over here. Randy? Second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? We are out of here. Thank you.